We are back today on Football Manager 26 to show you guys how you can still play Moneyball on FM26 with downloadable search filters, squad views, and shortlist views so that you can analyze data based on stats and still make Moneyball signings. Now this, of course, has been dumbed down from FM26 as we sadly no longer have chalkboard stats, but you can still use data to make the best signings on FM26 and take a club using Moneyball from the bottom to the very top. So today I'm going to show you guys from start to finish how you can set up your Moneyball saves and use data to make signings. And it really does start right at the very start and setting up your FM26 save, because you need to be able to extract as much data as physically possible, and all of that comes from how you load up your leagues. Now, I'm going to be having a game database setup file, which you guys can download from the Patreon, simply called Kempi's Moneyball Setup, which is my base recommended setup for Moneyball. But also, I think some people might want to do this themselves because they might not be managing in the same leagues as me. So you really do need to sort of tailor this to yourself so you can actually gain data from different teams and from different players. You need to make sure that every single league which you are potentially interested in signing players from is available, and you can set the league to view only is absolutely fine, but there is 90% of the leagues that on the game you need to at least set to view only so you can sign players from them leagues. As you can see, it really is pretty much every single decent league on the game that has been selected. But of course, that loads up 142,000 players, and your game will not be very quick. So what I've done is gone through and made pretty much every league that I know I'm not going to potentially manage in set to view only. And this has got us a player count of 108,000 while being on a custom database with a bunch of top tier players all selected. And like I said, this will be available, downloadable on the Patreon down below for completely free, as well as everything else that is in this video. And that's going to range from squad views, shortlist views, player search views, the filter once that is available to export, and a downloadable sort of PDF that you guys can refer back to on different Moneyball stats that you want to compare players to and use filters for. So really, I am giving you guys the full breakdown of Moneyball, but completely free. And what you also want to do is make a kind of mental note of every single league that you have got set as view only, because all of these leagues are going to have potential players that you want to sign them from. So you need to know all of these leagues so that when you come to setting up your filters, you can put the right leagues in. And then you want to pick the team you'll be managing, and for me, that is going to be Brighton. And there will also be a Brighton full Moneyball rebuild coming out on the channel on Sunday. So make sure you're subscribing so you can see all of this in real action as we go on to win the Premier League as the challenge, with Brighton only using Moneyball. Now, the first view that I have got for you guys is going to be the Moneyball squad view, which of course at the moment looks quite useless because everything is 0%, but this is going to give you a really good indication of how your players are performing in loads of different stats. We've got appearances, minutes, goals, XG, always good to compare goals and XG, shot percentage, and then conversion of shot percentage on target. You then got assists, expected assists, pass completion percentage, crosses versus crosses attempted, tackles ratio, percentage of completed tackles, distance per 90, and expected saves percentage, followed up by rating, training rating, form, ability, potential, transfer value, and then your wage and expiring contracts on the end as well. And like I said, this Kempi Moneyball squad view is going to be available in that Patreon link. We then have our player database view, which I've also managed to put on the Patreon down below for completely free once again. Sadly, this is a lot less in depth as I would like to go, but that's because I've set up different filters for every single position. Now, something else that is quite annoying and quite sad is at the moment, I don't know if this is patched as this video comes out, but at the moment, the filter that I am using, which you guys will sadly have to go through and effectively do yourselves, it doesn't take too long to do, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Currently isn't exportable, which means it's not downloadable, which is very, very frustrating. But effectively, what this filter is number one, setting the age profile between 15 and 30. In my opinion, with Moneyball, it is always good to have players which can potentially still have some value. I understand the Moneyball films sometimes when they got some, retired players or players at the very end of their career, and they brought them in and effectively tried to outdo data by bringing in retired players which played really well. For me in football, that's not how Brighton are run. That's not how to lose a run. They often go and get either players just before their prime, when their value was low, turn them into their prime, sell them high, or find youngsters that are performing well in obscure leagues, bring them into football, and then they go on and sell them, like Brighton with Caicedo, Baleba, etc. The list goes on with Brighton, hence why we're doing it with Brighton. And then for the leagues, you need to go through and add pretty much every single league which potentially you could go ahead and sign a player on. Now, I have to admit, this took me 5 or 6 minutes to go through and do this. It is a complete pain at the moment that you have to do this. But once you do it, I've set up different ways so you never have to change this again, other than adding through different search criteria for the separate positions. And again, we'll go into that in a minute, because luckily there is this really good stat screen here and we can set up different criteria which you guys can change. And again, I will show that in this video, and they'll be on the PDF, which again, you guys can download. But as soon as you've finished this filter, you don't have to delete this. You don't need to clear it all ever again. And hopefully all of this is complete waffle and you can actually just download the filter that I put in the Patreon. Please, SI, sort this out so I can make that, because it's a real pain to sort out. But once you've done it, hopefully you never have to do it again until you go to your next club in Moneyball, or you kind of start a brand new save. But it's not the end of the world. And of course, on the bottom here, we do have an average rating of at least a 7 and minutes played at 1,000. Simply to do that, you come into average rating, stats general, and then it's up here, average rating, and minutes is also down here as well. At least a 7 average rating, at least 1,000 minutes played. If you're getting too many options, then it's a 2,000, so you have a few more players. And the other thing with Moneyball is that you kind of have to play a full season to actually get stats, because, well, this is just stats in Brazil and in the MLS. But we know that if you played Moneyball in FM24, you pretty much can't really sign anyone. You can in January if you use the 1,000 minutes. That's a really good way of doing it. And of course, by the end of the season, you have all of your stats set up. And the main thing is for Moneyball this year is you kind of have to do things on certain days. And again, I will show you all that in this video. If already you've learned anything from this video, please make sure you are liking it and subscribing to the channel, and commenting down below which Moneyball rebuilds you want to see on the channel, because I want to do 2 or 3 a month of big Moneyball challenges, and I need you guys to tell me who to rebuild using Moneyball. So make sure you're getting that in the description down below. Now, before we actually get on to showing you guys how to analyze the different data, the other thing that I want to show you guys is Shortlist setup, because this is, again, how you're going to compare different players. Very simply, just click the add button, and then I will just put M-ball and then strikers. And then you want to do that for each individual position. So you have Moneyball strikers, Moneyball central attack midfielders, Moneyball wingers, Moneyball defensive midfielders, Moneyball wingbacks, Moneyball centre backs, and Moneyball goalkeepers. So you will have like 9 different shortlists all set up in the top left. And that's where you're going to export different players to compare them based on if they hit a certain criteria. And again, this might sound really confusing if you never played Moneyball on FM24, but it's sadly the way we've got to do it here on FM26, with exporting things into Shortlist rather than onto Excel. But I do think I've figured out a really good way of comparing stats and actually getting it to work. So I'm going to just go ahead and simulate this first season with Brighton, and then come back when I can actually show you guys the transfers in action. And now they're at the end of the season as well, I want to show you guys the different recruitment focuses that I've also got set up that are going to massively help us when it comes to signing wonder kids inside of doing Moneyball, because like I said, that's kind of what Brighton have done with Caicedo, etc. And because we can't really change the search filters at the moment, this is a really good way of being able to find the wonder kids within the save. So I've got different recruitment focuses set up in Europe, South America, and in Africa that help me find wonder kids from all over the world. Very simply, there is a full video out on the channel on these hidden wonder kid filters and wonder kid filters. They're very, very simple, to be honest. They are literally as shown, but I would recommend you go and watch them videos rather than using them for this. I've just used them exact filters in this to help out, as well as this top filter as well, which is age 15 to 32, playing in any position, and the further details is based on objective and stats that they have a high statistical performance in average rating. So this is already giving us just a little bit of information on players which are performing well in the match engine for them teams without having to go into our player database. That will just give us a little bit of extra scouting. So if we come here with all of our players that are loaded in, where there is 726 players now based on the data we have managed to get, and a few of them already have got scouting recommendations on them already, like Gonçalo Ramos, who was obviously smashing it at PSG with an A+, and some players already will have different scouting on them because of the things already set up, which just gives us a tiny little head start in terms of scouting. But of course, the real question is, how do we filter through these 726 players and actually find out the different data on them to choose who you want to sign? Well, I've created extra little filters for every single position as a generic, and then you guys can add more on top if you were looking for certain roles. For example, if we look at strikers, there is 107 players. The stats that we are looking for is going to be goals per 90 minutes. So we can track if we're going to sign an absolute bagsman or not. And of course, then a shots conversion ratio, which is in stats, shots, and conversion rate. As we scroll down to the bottom of our filter, we want to set the goals per 90 at 0.5. So any player which, regardless of the minutes they're scoring, as long as they're scoring a goal every other game, I'm happy to look at them. And conversion rate at 20%. And that will give us 9 strikers in the world which we could potentially sign. Now, of course, all of these strikers already have a decent amount of goals scored based on the fact that we know they're having at least 0.5 goals per 90 minutes, which is really good. So I'd imagine this striker here, which has got 13 in 32 starts, a lot of the games is coming off in the 55th, 60th minute. So rather than setting this to be, oh, they've got to score at least 19 goals out of a regular 38 game season, we're actually tracking it based on minutes, which gives the players a better chance. And we have these then 9 players, which we can then, if you didn't know this, if you click shift at the top and then shift at the bottom, shift click, not caps click, sorry, I was clicking the wrong thing. It will select all 9 of them, which you can then right click, add to shortlist and Moneyball strikers, add them in there for 3 months. Now, of course, you guys can go further in depth on this. So if you're looking for a target forward as well, you could come into stats, you could go into aerial challenges and look at headers one ratio. I would always recommend the ratios because they kind of give you a better understanding on, they're not winning 2 headers a game, but actually the challenges that they are winning 70% of them. I don't know what the percentage is going to be where we can see a good level here, but if we said 40% is quite high, 30% would give us 4 players. So this might give us 4 really good target forwards who are good at winning balls in the air, have a good shots on target ratio percentage, and are scoring 0.5 goals per 90 minutes. So you can add different stats in like that, and there will be, on the PDF that we have created, there will be different sort of stats for each individual role. So if you're looking at channel forwards, it might be successful dribbles and bits like that, but I haven't actually done the PDF yet, but that will be done and on the PDF, so you guys can do that extra little bit of data. But of course, that is just strikers, and we're going to go through each individual one in this video. The next one is going to be central attack midfielders and central midfielders, and we are changing it ever so slightly to be expected assists and goals, because for a goal scorer, I need to know they actually put the ball in the back of the net. Howeas for a central attack midfielder, I find assists a bit of a weird number, because if you set them up on a perfect play and the striker puts over the bar, it's not really your fault. So I'd rather go to expected assists, and for expected goals the same. I'm not expecting my Cam to score loads of goals a game. I just want to know that he's at least creating the chances to score them goals. And then key passes per 90 minutes set at 2 seems to be a really good rate. If you set this to 3, you get like 3 players, and they are the elite of the elite. However, 2 sort of gives you a wider scope to, once again, change this per different role. If you're looking at one that presses a lot, you can go into stats, you can go into movement, look at what sort of distance covered per 90 minutes. If you're looking for a playmaker that can get across the pitch a lot, set it to 12k, and you then have 11 players. You could change that into, if you're using a shadow striker, you could then sort of increase your shots from sort of shots on target ratio. You can bring that back in for what we had with the strikers, set it to 20%, higher than that actually, sort of 60. That's gonna be way too high. 40. We're gonna find 12. And again, it just kind of jig around the different percentages, and you'll find a level. You can see that probably there's not going to be many at 50% whatsoever, if any. So 40% is kind of the cap where you can see, okay, these guys are good at putting the ball on target, got great key passes, great goals per 90 minutes, great expected assists per 90 minutes. Apply that. And then I'd like to add an extra level to this as well. And it will be the fact that I want them to have at least 5 goals and at least 5 assists as well. So if we move assists to where it should be, sort this by goals, I'm not going to bring in Janacek and Churro. And in terms of assists, I'm not going to bring in Sula either. So if we shift and drop down to everyone, we don't want Sula. And then in terms of goals, we don't want Janacek and we don't want Kuro. because we do want them to at least be able to show they can score goals and can get assists. Filter, add to shortlist, Moneyball attacking mids, 3 months. Already, we can now see that we've managed to split up different players, so we can then scout them and use the analyst reports and use these different reports as well to see which ones we actually want. Attacking mids we have there, strikers we have there, and it just means we can compare them all separately per position. And then for the rest, I'm going to go a little bit quicker and just show you guys these stats we are using as a base, so you guys can then add on to that if you want to add anything else. And now I combine left mid and right mid. If you guys want to separate this out on your shortlist, have Moneyball wingers left, Moneyball wingers right, and then do the same with wing backs as well of left and right. I have expected assists per 90 at 0.1, expected goals per 90 is 0.2, key passes 2, and dribbles made per 90 5, so we know that they're getting at the defenders and beating a man. If you're looking for your wingers to be more assisting rather than inside forwards, change the goals per 90 to 0.1, set the assists at 0.2, and you'll just switch around from goal scoring wingers to chance creating wingers. For defensive midfielders, especially because I'm using pressing defensive midfielders, I've got distance covered per 90 minutes at 12k, tackles won per 90 minutes at 1.5, and pass completion ratio at 90%, so I know they can keep hold of the ball. Again, make tweaks to that if you wish. If your defensive midfielder is purely a defensive midfielder and you don't want them running about, take off distance covered per 90 minutes and up the tackles per 90 to 2, and you'll get more of a standard defensive midfielder rather than a pressing one. For our wing backs, of course, we are looking for them to have the ability to cross the ball, but also win possession back. So we've got cross completion ratio at 20% and tackle completion ratio at 80%. Most of the stats we're showing today are in this extra stats box. And then for, say, crosses, you want to go to the crosses one. For tackles, you want to go to the tackles one. And there is so many different options. Just make sure you're ticking the right one, because you can do accidentally tackles per 90 rather than tackle completion, and you won't quite get the same results. But I have found these to be really, really successful. And again, if you want to split this into left and right, just make the different shortlist for them. And then finally, with centre backs, once again, we are looking for a high tackle completion percentage, but also a high pass completion percentage, which will enable us to find ball playing centre backs, which can win the ball back. And once again, we get 7 different options. And then finally, for goalkeepers, I really don't do much in terms of adding extra stats on. If a goalkeeper is getting above a 7 average rating, they're doing a pretty good job. You can put some bits on. Again, there is a complete saves one. If I was probably doing the expected save percentage and making sure they are saving as many shots as they are expected to. So if we chuck this up at 90%, they're not going to get anyone. 80%, we're going to get all 11, which is a real shame we can't actually delve into that. I think that's why I didn't have anything on it, because you can't get nitty gritty. You know, if we're looking at 85%, we'll be able to see the elite of the elite. But sadly, if they're having a 7 average rating, they're doing very well as a keeper on FM. It's pretty much standard. And what you now have is all your different shortlists filled with your players, which you can now confidently say meet the criteria that you are looking to bring them in on. Now, don't get me wrong, last year and previously, we could go a lot more in depth with this. We can do a lot more comparison, and you can do that with players this year as well. It's just not as easy. And in my mind, once we get to this stage where I have got these 9 attacking midfielders out in the world, which fit the different criteria that I've set up for them, I'm pretty much happy to sign whichever one I want based on a scout report and an analyst report. So first up, what I would do is sort this by value, and instantly I'm going to get rid of all the ones that are really expensive, because again, I'm not looking to break the bank. We're doing Moneyball. Anyone over £40 million is not going to be signed. But we then have these 5 central attacking midfielders, which I'm pretty happy to confirm I would sign any of these based on the Moneyball stats, and then we'll look into their individual attributes as well. And again, that kind of comes down to whatever you guys want it to come down to. Alvin Sanchez, I know, is going to be a really good central attacking midfielder. I actually didn't decide to sign him in this rebuild. There was someone else better on the list that I signed in the end. But once we had our reports back, we then made up our mind from there. And I think it's worth actually just going forward to the where I actually started the next simulation, just to show you guys sort of everyone now we've got their different recommendation. Now, obviously, these are the strikers that I didn't sign. I don't want to spoil who I signed, but I will show just the striker in this video. And of course, once you go past that 2nd of June point, which I would recommend doing everything we've just done on the 2nd of June. Once you go past that, you start to lose different bits of data from different leagues. So you do that all on the 2nd of June. So you at least then have your shortlists. And that's why it's a bit difficult this year to then kind of keep the data while getting scout reports, because obviously we used to previously be able to export that onto an Excel spreadsheet, which was fantastic last year, and then go through and keep that information while simulating forward and getting scout reports. And I'm someone which I want to use scout reports. I want to be able to see what my scouts think of Vitor Roque. Of course, he's ended up moving to Bayern Munich in this save. We would have had, and quite possibly might still have, his analyst report. If it wants to scout, it doesn't want to show us. But we do have his report, and I do find it really important to also have the scout report and not just use the Moneyball data. The scouts are there for a reason. Someone could look incredible with the Moneyball stats, but be inconsistent and hate big matches. So there goes. We don't know anything about them in terms of their actual personality. We need the scout report to do that. So that's why it's a bit of a shame. Once you get them onto this shortlist, you're kind of done with the Moneyball aspects, because you've broken down their stats. You've gone and found their different attributes, which they tick all the boxes for. And then it's kind of what your scouts think and what your instinct thinks. And obviously, it would have been really easy for me to go out there and get Moritz Kiergaard from RB Salzburg, who looks absolutely insane. It was an A+ priority. Or Vitor Roque from Bayern Munich. Of course, he was previously at Palmeiras, where he scored 14 goals, hit a 7.25 average rating. And you can still see a bunch of different information down here, like his pass completion percentage. And you can still do all that. The signing I actually went for was very different. I ended up going for Shin Yamada from Celtic, scoring 22 goals in the Scottish Premier League. But he just really impressed me. I kind of got his report back and his overview. You know, he wasn't the most meta striker like a Vitor Roque. And I wanted to prove that you don't have to have the most meta strikers, even if they tickle the Moneyball criteria, to actually work. This guy obviously just works in the match engine. His scout report is really good. Great pace, which we know is good on Football Manager, and really good sort of in a 4-2-3-1 gegenpressing Moneyball-esque system. Can play a natural in a bunch of different positions. He holds himself in a fairly professional manner. So we know as an actual person, he's going to be a really good player for Moneyball. He's got the right criteria. He ticked all the boxes in terms of the different stats we need him to fill, like shots and target percentage for a goal scorer, at least scoring 0.5 goals per 90 minutes. So I brought him in, and he was fantastic. Without giving away where we finished in the league or what competitions we won, he was absolutely brilliant. This season, scored 18 goals in 29 games in the Premier League alone, scored 3 in 2 cup competitions, and scored 10 in 11 continental competitions, so Europa League, Conference League, or Champions League. You guys will have to watch the video to find out how we done. I would say it's a pretty good translation from a smaller league like manager playing in Celtic to the Premier League for £13.5 million. His stats went up a bunch as well. He's 27 years of age. He's now a capped Japanese striker, and he's got a goal for them as well. And was one of my favourite signings in this whole Moneyball rebuild, because I decided to go purely based on the stats, and was a bit of a rogue choice rather than I thought, if we use Moneyball stats and we find Vitor Roque, I mean, that's a bit boring, isn't it? Vitor Roque is obviously going to go and score loads of goals. Let's stick in the Celtic striker, see how he does. And as you can see, he absolutely cooked. And again, without giving away too much, I also signed Edward Chilufya on the right wing. He started 17 games, got 7 assists, got 3 goals, a 6.91 average rating. He was absolutely cooking at Midtjylland, a 7.59, signing for £17.75 million. And he was absolutely brilliant. He's got great speed. His dribbles are fantastic for us. As you can see down here, ranking at 6.88 dribbles per game. Of course, we're normally looking at least 5. His expected assists per 90 are at 0.26. So he also hits that this season for us. And his expected goals per 90, he also hit that for more of a creative winger, which he is as just a winger. And this screen is actually really, really good. If you didn't know you could get to that, it is very simply clicking the season stats here rather than the career stats in here. And you get sort of a lot more information. So again, if you're looking to delve a little bit deeper and you want to compare players, you could quite easily take screenshots of different players, put them on different monitors, and you can compare them that way. If you've got 5 or 6 players, it's not too difficult to do that. But this is a really good way you can do it. We can see he's a really good chance creator, and on the minutes he's actually playing, he's doing really, really well. So Edward Chilufya was a great signing, as was Shin Yamada, and there was loads more in just that first season as well. Because as you can see, we got absolutely rinsed this year, and we sold £274 million of players in one season. And again, that's sort of a thing with Moneyball, is you have to be able to kind of know when to sell players. If someone is exceeding their transfer value and you get an offer for them, like I got, I say a £75 million offer for Ruta after 1 year from Newcastle, I'm never going to get that again, to be honest. Sell him, go and bring in Shin Yamada, 13 million, scores more goals. With Moneyball, like Brighton do in real life, cashing out for the maximum value possible is a really key tip. And my other tip, which I've completely forgot to say, is about scout priorities and how you actually get scouting information based off of your shortlist. Because right now, I've got 272 players on the scout shortlist, and I had to sort of go back and forth a few months in the save to the different save points and start scouting all over again, purely because my scouts weren't scouting the players I wanted them to scout. If you sort of select all 272 or however many is there, cancel assignment, you can see that on Recruitment Focuses, scout priorities at the bottom. Go back into your shortlist, where I haven't actually done the analysis yet for this season, but then you come through and you scout them all individually there. And then you will go through and have, say, 50 players in your scout priorities, but they will be your Moneyball players being scouted first rather than the ones on your Recruitment Focuses. So if you're finding you're not getting a lot of scout reports back, that is why. And like I said, that is basically how to play Moneyball on FM26. Now, if there's any further updates, then I'll do more videos like this showing you guys how you can extract data if we're allowed to do that at some point. The different search filters we could potentially use if we're able to extract all the different search filters. I would also say I will extract every single search filter for each position if I'm able to do that when this video comes out. Again, they will all be available on the Patreon. If not, each individual screenshot of each individual stat that you guys need to track will be on the PDF that I'll create for you. So you'll have something to go to, click it, and scroll through and do your own sort of setup like I've done it here today. And trust me, it really does work. I have had fantastic results using it already on FM26 throughout the beta. I'm expecting to do loads of these throughout the year as well, showing how Moneyball can work on FM26. So if I've helped you at all today, guys, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, because we're going to do lots of Moneyball in the future. And I'll speak to you guys next time.